The auditorium's lights burned down on me like I'd made some grave mistake. Rows of parents and classmates craned forward, waiting for my speech. Our school principal, a brittle man with silvery slicked hair, stood fidgeting behind the podium as I approached the microphone in my pressed but slightly fraying suit. I'd rehearsed my lines all morning in the cramped apartment on Cal Embajadors, picturing my mother's proud face in the crowd. Yet I couldn't see her, just the sea of faces, some already smirking, some bored. I tried to steady my breath, forcing myself to remember each word I'd written. I want to thank my teachers for believing in curiosity, and my family for always reminding me Ellis Fuazo Paga. Sweat slicked my palms. And when I think about my future, all I want is a kitchen, a few good knives, and... Someone in the second row, Javier from my own block, snickered. So you'll be the world's first Michelin dishwasher, eh, Santi? Laughter erupted, first in coughs, then sharper from my classmates, then some adults, less embarrassed about crushing a 17-year-old's dreams. The principal tapped his watch, eyes sliding away, my voice caught in my throat. I tried again, but now their amusement was a wall pressing the air from my chest. I want to be a chef, I said, voice trembling, and open my own restaurant in Madrid. I could hear my cousin Marta whisper to Aunt Anna, "Que ridiculo, ese niño siempre con sus recetas raras." Their words didn't sting so much as freeze me in place. The principal stepped forward, hand already on my shoulder. "Gracias, Santiago," he said briskly, guiding me away. The microphone hissed and cut. The applause was sparse, more polite ritual than recognition. My classmates hadn't even concealed the laughter and whispers as I shuffled back to my folding chair, cheeks burning not from shame, but humiliation curling deep and cold inside. The rest of the ceremony was a blur. Hugs that felt like apologies, promises from teachers that I'd be an excellent accountant like your uncle, the smell of cologne and cheap garlands. For a while I tried to make myself forget that moment. But humiliation doesn't fade, it hardens into patience or, if you're not careful, bitterness. At home, Mama was stoic. She kissed my forehead, pressed an envelope into my palm. "Solo espero que puedas vivir de eso," she said, and I saw behind her eyes the worry, the quiet heartache that rides along with poor people who have learned not to hope too high or wide. 6 months later, I stood at the sink of Bar Morales, shucking slimy piles of clams with fingers that cramped nightly. Chef Morales, barrel-chested with the breath of chorizo and strong wine, barely looked at me. I scrubbed pots, gutted anchovies, and woke at dawn to slice crusty bread until my knuckles split. I took the bus before sunrise, came home after midnight. Mama would be asleep, a plate of tortilla on the counter, and a silence in the house that felt like resignation. My friends laughed, some with kind intentions, some not, when I declined Saturday beers because estoy cocinando. I kept my cookbooks hidden, dog-eared editions rescued from a Noyer's library discard bin, pages sticky from trial and error in the dead of night. Morales called me raton, always below notice, but I watched always, every pan flipped, every order barked and fulfilled. The other line cooks sneered when I dared ask questions. Still I listened, patience like marrow in my bones. Years drifted by in a haze of grease and midnight bus rides. Mama's hair went from black to grey, my sister moved to Valencia to teach. I rose to prep cook, then line chef, my name now uttered as a mutter rather than a joke. Still no invitations to family gatherings without a wary, "Why como va esa tonteria tuya," that ridiculous thing of mine. It hurt more than I admitted. Christmases went by with Aunt Anna telling everyone at the table how her Archero had finished engineering school, how Marta was engaged. I spooned out paella for them all, their gratitude half an afterthought. Sometimes at night I stood on the roof, skirted by the city's orange glow, the clamour of Madrid's old streets drifting up. I dreamt of a little place, warm light spilling onto the pavement, laughter and music, my food arriving at tables as more than a last resort. I saw in my mind's eye the doubting faces, Javier, Tia Anna, tasting my dish and finding themselves surprised. Even angry with pleasure, those hours were dark and secret, but they fed the quiet endurance in me. By the time Morales fell sick, I'd absorbed more than procedures. I'd sensed Madrid's pulse, its craving for something honest and alive. Morales' son inherited the restaurant, closing it within the month to sell the property for apartments. Suddenly, I was 30, adrift, savings hardly enough for 3 months' rent. There were nights I lay in bed hearing Mama's faint cough through the thin wall and wondered if I'd failed already. But the patience was with me. Every humiliation, every joke, it calcified into a stubborn persistence. I worked at the new fusion joints near Malasania, pulling double shifts, sending money back home, all while collecting old recipes from abuelas who trusted me. My notebooks filled with spidery scrawl, flower fingerprints, reminders, don't oversalt cod, finish with lemon zest always. At night the dream haunted me, I grew tired but hungry still. At last, after years of hustling, private catering, pop-up suppers in friends' apartments, an opportunity came, a tiny locale in Lavapiés, a basement with exposed brick and terrible plumbing. My laugh bounced around the empty space. It smelled of old onions and dust, but it was mine, at least on a shoestring loan that would bleed me if I failed. I bought second-hand tables from a closing bakery up the street. My cousin Marta's boyfriend painted the front sign for a bottle of Rioja. Valiant primo, no se si pude funcionar. He meant well, the refrain was familiar. Opening night was a rainstorm. I cooked alone, hands steady, mouth a tight line as leeks dripped into a bucket in the corner. A trickle of customers, a pair of tourists, a group of art students braved the steps. I served patatas bravas, lamb with cardamom, anchovies marinated in tangerine. Nobody mocked, nobody laughed, they ate, some smiled. For months it was survival, thin earnings, power cuts, panic when the freezer failed. But word, it seemed, could spread just as pity once did. Somebody posted a photo of my lamb on Instagram. A food blogger wandered in, raved about the city's best calamari in squid ink yoli. Then a second review. One summer night I saw my father's cousin, who'd laughed at my graduation, duck through the door. He didn't recognize me at first, just bit into a piece of grilled octopus and closed his eyes. When he realized, he flushed and swallowed his words. Está muy bueno, Santi. Surprise, regret. I nodded, the old ache replaced with something springy and hot. Gracias, tío. That was all. Months became years. The restaurant El Riscate packed with neighbors and newcomers. The lines out the door were still thin compared to the legends, but this was mine, these hands, this sweat. Every bite served a brick in the wall I rebuilt around myself, no longer for defense but shelter. I'd stopped attending family gatherings, social functions, even the block's summer festival. There was always an excuse, the dinner rush, supply orders, a menu change. Part of me feared the old wounds would split open if I returned, that I'd again be that kid with his ridiculous dream, even if I'd won. But when Mama passed, a quiet Sunday, heart giving in after too many lonely years, something crumbled. Cleaning out the apartment, I found in a battered shoebox all my earliest recipes, torn out magazine pages annotated in her tight script. She had kept them all hidden from everyone, even from me. A heaviness came then, a pressure like the thick air before a thunderstorm. For weeks I wandered the city after closing time, letting Madrid's sodium-lit streets try to comfort me. My restaurant became both sanctuary and mausoleum. I poured everything into each service, but loneliness waited on the stairs. One Saturday, as if by fate or accident, word went around the old barrio about my place. An old classmate came and brought Javier. 2 aunts, then my cousin Archero, then even tia Anna. It happened without warning. My hostess, Rosa, who never knew my high school shame, greeted them all with warmth, seating them like any other party. When she whispered their names in my ear, I felt my hands turn cold. I stood in the kitchen for a long moment, listening to their laughter, the sound of wine glasses clinking, chairs scraping. A war started inside me, the old Santi, humiliated and furious, pleading to escape, the Santi who'd learned patience fighting to steady my skin. I worked faster, pouring myself into the dishes without thinking. Morcilla with pomegranate, hake cheeks on smoky white bean puree, chicken with burnt lemon, Mama's torn tortilla recipe. My team watched me nervous as each course left the kitchen. From my post at the serving hatch I watched their faces, doubt at first, mild amusement, polite curiosity, then the first bites. Javier's fork stabbed a sliver of octopus, hesitation flickering in his frown. Archero tried the lamb, cautious. Aunt Anna poked at her beans, murmured something I couldn't hear. One by one their faces changed, a sleeper awakened by a familiar scent. The skeptical lines softened, cheeks flushed. A sigh escaped from someone's lips, then a muttered Dios mío, then the quietest, Esto es bueno de verdad lo ha hecho Santi. They asked to see me, I hesitated. My sous chef nodded, gently nudging me toward the dining room. I dried my hands on my apron, heart kicking hard, and pushed through the swinging door. The scene froze like a painting. 13 faces looked up. Cousins, aunts, and uncle who hadn't hugged me since school, their expressions a collage of shock, pride, confusion. The room was buzzing with other customers, but I felt only their eyes. Javier, who'd once cut my speech short with laughter, spoke first, his voice low, almost hoarse. Esto es incredible Santi, my bueno. Anna, always regal and reserved, reached for my hand. Nunca pensé, she faltered. Nunca creí que esto fuera posible, te hemos juzgado pero tú, she trailed off, tears on her lashes. I held her gaze, calm and clear, only patience now. Gracias tia, my voice was steady, quiet. Esto es todo lo que siempre quise hacer. The table spilled gratitude, shy congratulations, confessions of doubt now awkwardly tender. They asked about the menu, wanted details about the techniques. Archero, engineer and family favorite, grinned at me with real respect. Me calast la boca primo. I shook his hand, then hugged Marta. Someone proposed a toast, Javier, for once gentle, glass held high. A Santiago, a los quesunion y aguantan la burla pero ganan de verdad. The other customers, sensing a story, joined the applause that rippled through the room. For a moment, the noise filled every empty space I'd carried since that day. My throat tightened, but I wouldn't let longing overtake me. As the meal ended, my family lingered, picking crumbs, speaking softly. Aunt Anna dabbed her eyes. Mama's absence was a shadow at the table, but I felt her more present than ever, a strong, invisible hand on my shoulder. That night, after the last dishes were washed, I sat outside the restaurant on a metal chair, watching the street lamps shimmer on the rainy pavement. The city hummed as always, alive, indomitable. My heart too. Humiliation had been my inheritance, patience my companion, but seeing each doubter transformed, witnessing the moment skepticism collapsed under the honest weight of my food, felt like exhaling a breath I'd been holding for a decade. Madrid's air for once tasted sweet and free. I belonged, not in their acceptance, not in public victory, but in the work and the waiting. I'd returned not to claim vindication, but to prove quietly that sometimes a ridiculous dream is the truest thing a soul can build. And in that golden hush, with the city outside still dancing, I finally let myself smile.